Are you adding value when someone will pay for the service? If you're paying people to use a service, you're not actually testing your validity and your viability in the market for what you're providing. And if you're not, you're just kicking the can down the road. It's your margin is our opportunity. We have 25 people, 20 engineers. We have been building, we've been bringing on developers. We've got 23 dApps signed up that are working in the Scale ecosystem. So market correlations would be a Polkadot or Cosmos. So the developer ecosystem within Ethereum is really booming. So we want to make life easy for them to deploy and to scale their application. Ethereum developer in a few lines of code can take a dApp and run it in Scale at 2,000 transactions per second.
Jack, great to meet you.
Great to meet you.
Tell us about Scale. I mean, to be honest, I heard about your project just today in this room, but then as I was searching through my links of investors and other funds in our community, I just came across a situation where I totally missed out on you. I mean, you were just recently invested by Hashed, like tons of other funds and private investors. How did it happen?
Yeah.
How long are you guys doing this?
Great question. So we took a different approach. It was like tortoise and hare strategy. We have 25 people in the core team, 20 engineers.
Wow.
We have been building, we've been bringing on developers. We've got 23 dApps signed up that are working in the Scale ecosystem. We've raised over 17 million in capital from a lot of the top investors around the world. And have a very proven team from Silicon Valley and a very proven development team in Ukraine that's all core team.
Right.
So we've been taking a build first approach, and part of it was the market dynamics. I think it was very clear to me that we were going to have a situation where hollowness would soon expose itself.
Exactly.
But projects that were really building something sustainable on a strong foundation, whereas you'd have a delay in the short term, you're going to have much greater growth in the long term. And another piece of this too is that we're not launching our token yet. We're getting ready to launch our mainnet later this year, and then we'll launch the token. Then we'll be traded on exchanges, which is similar to traditional businesses, right? Where you build growth, you have metrics, and the industry needs that. The industry is maturing, and we kind of saw that happening. So it also let us focus. Once your token's live, it takes a tremendous amount of time and effort to manage that conversation. So yeah, we've been around for a while, and in circles, been very well known, but the broader public's starting to hear a lot more about us, especially after the financing announcement today.
Sweet, yeah. For those who, for some reason, didn't follow you as well, can you briefly try to describe what Scale is all about? So, like, how do you fit yourself in this environment of blockchain protocols, different layers, solutions, and so on?
Yeah. So the first thing is we're true believers in the Ethereum ecosystem.
Okay.
So the developer ecosystem within Ethereum is really booming.
Right.
So there are more people working on subcomponents of the Ethereum broader ecosystem than there are in entire other major categories. Okay.
That's very true.
So we're focused there, and so our main goal is to help Ethereum dApp scale, and with as little effort as possible, and as little user experience issues for both the developer and the end user. So we want to make life easy for them to deploy and to scale their application. So an Ethereum developer in a few lines of code can take a dApp and run it in Scale at 2,000 transactions per second, sub-second block times, which is huge, and gasless transactions. There's a gasless model. So that's our goal, but the bigger picture is this is modern decentralized cloud. We're building a elastic blockchain network.
Yeah, that's a good word that you use.
Yeah. So
does it mean that you in a way compare yourself to projects like Matic or Bifrost that is being launched at the moment, or like who do you benchmark yourself or sort of watch as your peers who are actually trying to solve the same issues?
That's a really great question. So with Scale, it's more than just doing layer 2 scaling. You can do storage, you can run machine learning models, pre-trained TensorFlow models and Scale smart contracts. You can run full EVM. You can, there's a lot you can do. So we really think of it as decentralized cloud with interoperability. So I would say very clearly, some market correlations would be a Polkadot or Cosmos. There's also comparisons to Loom and Matic and other pure layer 2 scaling options. But then you could also compare Scale, I think, to you look at Scale and Ethereum combined, and It's very much competitive to what you'd find with a Definity or other, new Web3 infrastructure providers. So we just are taking the approach that we're Ethereum first, and we leverage security within the Ethereum network for Scale smart contracts. And custody happens in the Scale chain, but there's a lot of foundational components that are built into Ethereum. So that's our unique approach. We're adding to Ethereum and also borrowing and applying value back to it.
Right. So since you're in a way, well, actually you said that you're here in the space for quite a while. What is your current stage? What is coming?
Great question. So we're launching mainnet. We launched our first test net. So I'll just go back a little further. We started at the end of 2017.
Oh, wow.
Stan, my co-founder, who has over 19 years of cryptography experience. He's got a PhD in physics. He was a researcher at Stanford. He was on the founding team with Dan Bonet back in 2000 on a cryptography company, and actually ran a cryptography lab for 7 years. And I've been doing tech startups in Silicon Valley since 2005 and started numerous companies. So we both saw this space and saw the potential, and we're doing other really cool things in Silicon Valley and completely dedicated ourselves in 2017. And then Floodgate Insignia funded our seed round. Mike Maples, who's a very famous investor in Silicon Valley.
That was equity, right?
That was it was equity and SAFT. So there was a SAFT component for tokens, and not knowing which direction the company would go. Now it's gone towards tokens, so the SAFT is really the vehicle. And then Multicoin led the next round of financing in 2018. And then we launched a testnet in December of last year. We launched a public usable DevNet in February. We've had 48 submissions at ETH hackathons this year.
Oh, wow.
It's if not the most, one of the most broadly used platforms at all the ETH hackathons. And there's 23 companies and dApps building on Scale. So we're launching mainnet at the end of this year. It may end up be early in Q1 based off of the holiday timeframe. So we'll try to optimize that so it's the best thing for our validators, for our delegators and investors in conjunction with holiday times. But that's what we're doing. We're going to try to take this and make it a reality. Take these cool things happening in a DevNet, bring it to the public.
Watching you today at the speech and the panel, I actually like the point that some of you guys mentioned, and you yourself as well, that when you talk about developers and users, there's lots of teams that are trying to incentivize them right now just to make sure that, hey, come on our platform, get rewarded for this, and so on and so forth. Whereas, from what I heard, you use a different approach, right? You don't want to pay for people to come in and stay there, superficially, right? But rather create some inherent logic that would be sustainable.
So I mean, I've been doing tech startups for a very long time, and one of the most crucial things you find out is are you adding value when someone will pay for the service? And if you're paying people to use a service, you're not actually testing your validity and your viability in the market. And I think Stan and I have had successful startups. We're not in this to really make money. We're in this to build something great. And so is our team. So it is a great way to see if you have product market fit, to see if someone will pay for what you're providing. And if you're not, you're just kicking the can down the road. And you may find out later, and it might not feel good for you, your team, your investors, the people that bought in your token launch. So that's our approach is let's have a little friction. Let's make sure that people that use Scale really inherently see the value. And the reality is the best projects, no amount of money will convince them to build on your network.
Very true, And it's sort of, in a way, it actually motivates you to think all the time, what do you have to come up with next, right? To make sure that you attract all these developers and the users rather than just to pay them or buy them out of the market.
There's this saying called happy ears. Happy ears, and it's an old saying in enterprise sales methodology that a lot of times people just want to hear the good news and you avoid hearing the bad news, and then when you finally find out, it's too late and you can't do anything about it. So we try to actually ask the tough questions and say, well, what more would you want? Why would this not be a fit? What could be better about this? Is there anything that you don't like? And then you actually really learn and you can improve your product.
if we go down that road, can you name a couple of 2, 3, things of what you actually digged out as some really interesting insights implemented into Scale, and it actually gave you the boost?
Yeah, so one thing that's just very, very clear is when you have a layer 2 effort or a sidechain effort that connects into Ethereum, the security model is critical. So you can't just rely on the subset of validators that are working for dApps.
Right.
You really have to have good randomness and rotation to make sure that the smaller group can leverage the security from the broader pool. Yeah. So that really forced us to take our randomness and our rotation mechanisms to the next level, further levels than we even initially planned. The other thing is interchain messaging. So the features and the requirements we found out were far more extensive than we initially thought. And that was one of the toughest things. So in order for in the Scale chain to seamlessly move ERC 721 and ERC 20 and ETH back and forth, there's a lot that goes into that across different use cases for smart contracts. So we went to school, we learned, and the product is far better because of it.
Beautiful, beautiful. What do you think is going to bring the whole industry to the next level? Is it the new dApps, the new Telegrams, Claytons, Libras, or the corporates like Bakkt? What is it going to be? What is it going to be?
So I think one, there's a value to friction equation. So as a user, if there's too much friction, it doesn't matter how good good the value is. And so people just won't use it if it's too painful to use, right?
Sure.
And so what we're seeing is a transformation happening at these hackathons where users can opt in with Portis or Bitski or Taurus and these API-based wallets and seamlessly start using applications and opt in with Google or other mechanisms and not have to manage like their ledger wallet. They literally have their crypto in this really usable manner that's secure. And then the other piece is having gasless transactions and sub-second block times and no throughput bottlenecks. And that's where Scale comes in. So we have these seamless integrations with those API-based wallets. And then what people are building with these hackathons, it literally feels like a normal decentralized application. And so that opens up gaming, it opens up decentralized finance. And I'm seeing real growth happen and traction happen in areas that are disruptive.
Right.
So decentralization has huge value for situations where there's middlemen that are taking unfair rent, they have poor governance policies for their users or within a marketplace. So that will happen first, and I think enterprise is still living in a pilotitis world where they're just trying things, and they'll catch on a little later.
I also like the comment, I think you made it on your slide, that if you compare the situation where this started with Jeff Bezos. Was it on your slides? Or
yes, that was mine.
That was like ideal because basically the quote, I wouldn't say it exactly, of course, but the whole idea is that when he identified the opportunity to eliminate some of the middleman and basically take the margin to himself, blockchain is actually doing pretty much the same, but just redistributing this margin across all the community that is going to support it, right? I mean, the validators, the top developers, and so on and so forth. So that is really like a phenomenal change in the economy. And do you think this is like too, utopian maybe, or would it really happen, or would it just stay within some limited areas and industries that are feasible at the moment at least?
Yeah, great. So, and the quote, I've been saying this a lot lately is, and I've been watching, Jeff Bezos has done a phenomenal job executing, but he is now the middleman, right? And then that extends into a lot of other areas of people that use that service. And the new method and quote is, it's your margin is our opportunity as opposed to your margin is my opportunity. And the reality is these things take time, but once they catch hold and once the value to friction is at the right place, I think we're going to see them take off exponentially. And all of us, right? It's like the industry is one big startup and expecting things to happen quickly.
Right.
We're moving at a really great pace. I mean, I was involved with mobile in the early days, and in 2005, it was painful to use a mobile application. And there were hardly any users. In 2008, it was like a hockey stick. It was the knee of the curve.
Right.
And we're just going through the same process. I was also in machine learning, and I started a machine learning company in 2009 through 2014. And I'm going to tell you, it was painful. People would say, "Are you, a computer's going to help me make decisions? Get out of here."
Right. Right.
And I was selling into enterprise, and then again, it was just transformational, and the growth across that space was wild, but it just takes a while. And like, we're still early, but I think next year is going to be a marquee year.
Right.
I've been saying it's the year of the DApp. I think we're going to have the first DApp with 1 million daily active users. And then things are going to happen quick, because big companies can't compete with the profit sharing and the hour component.
Well, very good words. And let's hope to see this in the very, very near future. All the best and luck, Jack.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Спасибо.
much.